So we have a few minutes, and Marshall is willing to take a few questions from the audience if you guys have any interest in how stuff works or any points from this talk. So you can just raise your hand and we'll pick you out.
Over there.
Hi. So your entrepreneurship class actually is offered to the engineering students at NC State. It doesn't incorporate all the engineering programs because you're not counting it, well, those programs are not counting it toward their senior design credit. Are you working with those programs so that seniors such as manufacturing seniors and industrial engineering seniors, as well as environmental seniors, can be involved in this program?
So the short answer is we would love for every engineering student to be able to participate. So it is intended to be a college-wide program. Where it gets hung up is if a department has found a revenue stream from their senior project class. So, Department X has gone out to industry and found partners who are willing to pay, say, $5,000 for a student team to work on the project. When that happens, it tends to disincentivize the department to make its students available into the engineering entrepreneurs program. So what we try to do is create dialogue with those departments and try to get them to a place where they'd be willing to release some of their students into the engineering entrepreneurs program, because the fact is that the majority of students don't have entrepreneurial intentions. They just don't have any desire to be entrepreneurs. And so by making it available, it's not like they're going to have a mass exodus over our program. And when we are able to convince them to do that, I know we convinced one department this last couple of weeks to make the switch, then we have another department in our program. You're in IE, is that what you said?
I'm an IE and environmental, and I've been approached by your, I guess, project groups to help them do things that they don't know how to do.
Okay.
So it's very interesting to see that.
Right. So if you were to send me an email, we may be able to work with your department if you have a specific interest and figure out how to diplomatically make it occur. Thanks.
Thank you.
Question over there.
Yeah, thanks, Senator. So earlier in your speech, you mentioned about the potential massive job loss that can occur if factory get fully automated. So how do you think we can prevent that? Do we have to train the people working in the factory right now, or how do you think we can prevent that from occurring?
Well, that's a great question, and I've written a lot about this. If you were to come to marshallbrain.com, I have a bunch of free material there that talks about this. A really short version of an answer to your question would be that right now on planet Earth, there is one intelligent species, and we are it. And as far as we know, we're the only intelligent species in the universe, which is kind of a remarkable thing when you consider how big the universe is. But there's no evidence right now that there's any other intelligent species but us. And at this moment in history, we are developing the second intelligent species. And we are doing it at a pretty good clip right now. So Google has their automated cars coming out that are able to drive themselves and are now legal in 3 states. That is really likely to take, if you just extrapolate out several years, to take truck driving and make it an extinct occupation. There's about 1 million truck drivers in the US. Once you have robots that can drive trucks 24/7 without getting sleepy or having problems with alcohol or getting sick or all these things, then the trucking industry will instantly convert over to robots, and 1 million truck drivers are going to be out of work. That's completely inevitable. So you look across the whole economy, and there's about 50 million jobs that are at risk at different various levels of that kind of disemployment by these second intelligent species that we're developing. So argue that as a society, we should start thinking about what to do about this problem and start taking steps to redesign society so that we take advantage of that automation rather than letting it turn half the population into folks who don't have any way of earning income. So if you'd like to learn more, you can come to MarshallBrain.com, and there's a whole bunch of material that talks about that. There are not really good solutions when you take into account the fact that we're developing a species that's going to make us kind of obsolete in the majority of jobs that we have in the workplace right now.
We'll take one more question. Right here.
You were sort of discussing the difference between rapid prototyping and certainly the availability of CAM technologies versus some of the examples that you showed of repetitive manufacturing. And I think I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that line between when one chooses one versus the other, right? What sort of causes that toggle back and forth, making one more valuable than the other?
That's a good question. So 3D printing is really useful right now when you're prototyping something or when you're doing a lot of custom work. So there are small companies that have grown up that are developing custom jewelry that's printed on 3D printers, for example. There are people who make a variety of custom plastic parts for cars where the parts are now obsolete. There's no way to buy them, things like that. So I think what will happen as we go forward is that 3D printers will get faster and less expensive to a point where lots of things will get printed rather than manufactured. For example, using giant aluminum molds like we saw with that window farm, because those giant molds are really expensive up front to make. And what we're trying, I think in general, to get to in manufacturing is lowering those upfront costs as much as we can, because that makes it more and more accessible as we wash out those, 10 or 50 or $100,000 mold costs at the front end. 3D printing lets us get away from those really high upfront costs, and I think the trend will be for the price and the delay of 3D printing to decrease and make it possible to print stuff as inexpensively as you manufacture stuff in mass now. We can hope that.
Well, I think we'll conclude it there, but thank you very much for coming.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me.